So which of these nutrients can you get from eating whole fruit that is not usually found in juice? So you got to make sure that you answer before the timer goes up. So just for the next one, just please give me your answer before the thing
Yeah,
expires.
so just a tip, we have 20 seconds for the limit. So once you see the question, then when you have the answers, try to select an answer within 20 seconds.
All right. So just for the next one, please, as soon as you can, go ahead and answer it. But yes, so fiber. So fiber is actually, so for example, if you've ever made your own juice at home, typical juicers, they'll squeeze the fruit and they'll get all the water and they'll all the liquid and all the sugar out of it. But that pulp that remains, that's the fiber. So if you eat a whole fruit versus just drinking a cup of juice, you're losing all of that fiber. And fiber is like all the rough stuff that's in, like, for example, if you take a bite out of an apple, you have the peel, you have the little pieces of it. When you eat a whole apple, you're also ingesting the fiber. And when you don't, you're not. So fiber is just basically plant cells, and it really helps in digestion. It absorbs water. It helps you helps you poop better. It helps you out with a lot of different stuff. So if you have trouble with any of that, incorporating a lot of fiber in your diet is really important. So that's what that is. Oh, wow. Okay, very nice. Which of the following is a good fruit source of potassium known to help regulate blood pressure? So it's actually all of the above. So while everyone typically says, "Oh yeah, bananas, potassium, potassium," yes, bananas are a good source of potassium, but dried apricots and orange juice also have really significant amounts of it. So there's a lot of different sources. It's not like you just need one fruit for one thing. Potassium, if you ever learn biology on a higher level, everything in your body literally relies on potassium and another mineral called sodium. So there's a lot of different stuff happening in your body that really relies potassium. So one of those things is to help regulate blood pressure. On a very easy way to say it, yeah, it's really important for you. So it is actually all of the above. So for the two people who got that right, very nice. Which of the following counts as part of the fruit group? So canned peaches, 100% orange juice, dried apricots, or all of the above. And the photo that you're seeing, this is a thing called MyPlate, or it's like the plate that the USDA chooses for food choices. So there you go. Wow, you all got it right. Yes. So all of these things are considered part of the fruit group. If you ever learned about nutrition at like a really young age, there used to be this thing called a food pyramid, and it basically had different food groups listed on the ones that you should have the most of, the ones that you should have less of, and et cetera, et cetera. But now we've moved it, like the USDA has moved it over to a plate so that it's easier to visualize. Because versus like a pyramid, thinking about what you want to eat, every time you have a meal, you can just visualize the plate and think about how much of each section of your plate is from different kinds of food groups. So if you're not familiar with food groups, it's something that you can really look into and it'll really help you out. So all of these count as a food group. Kavya, you're doing so well. Like what?
Because I know these things.
Okay, fiber found in fruit is associated with which of the following health outcomes? So like I kind of alluded to this a little earlier, so just recall on what I said. Very good. So maintaining proper bowel function is another word for poop. So yes, it helps you with your with pooping. Fruits are sources of which of the following? So this is going to be a little bit more tricky, but this is, think about what's in fruit and what you can get out of it. So folate, vitamin D, calcium, or protein. Oh yeah, see, this one was tricky. So it's actually a great source of folate. Um, so folate is one, so this is a little bit more advanced, but folate is actually one of a form of B vitamins, and it's needed by all of our cells for growth. So our entire body is made up of trillions of cells, and each of them need folate, which is a really important vitamin needed for its growth. Vitamin D and calcium are not typically found in high amounts of fruits. There are some orange juices that are fortified with vitamin D and calcium. So fortification is when you have a product and you add things that aren't normally in it because you need it. So for example, juice, you can put calcium, vitamin D, they'll add it into the juice so that you can get it, because those aren't naturally found in those things. And protein is just there's not a lot of protein in fruit. Okay. About how much of your plate should be fruits and vegetables? So if you remembered the photo of the plate that we showed earlier, just think about it. Just go back and think about it. So the right answer is 1/2. So this was kind of like a trick question. If you look at the photo of it, like half of it is fruits and half of it is vegetables. So the way that it looks is like around like a third-ish is fruit, and then around like a little bit more than a third is vegetables, but it still makes up half of the plate. So fruits and vegetables should be half of your plate. What vitamin gives carrots and sweet potatoes their orange color? There's another word for this vitamin, but what is it? It's a form of one of these lists. So is it vitamin D, vitamin A, folate, or vitamin O? And remember, folate is another form of vitamin B. So it's actually, oh wow, so I guess you all knew that. So it's actually a compound called beta carotene, and it has the word carrot in it. So whenever you hear beta carotene, it's something related to orange. So sweet potatoes and carrots both are orange in color, and that vitamin A compound, beta carotene, is what gives them that color. And it's also like that whole thing of, oh, sorry, never mind, you can go ahead. You should only eat raw vegetables, because if you cook vegetables, all of the vitamins are cooked away. Is this true or false? Hold on. Hold on. Was this? I don't know if this was, okay, I'm a little confused on this because my answer says something a little different and this one's a little different.
I think it's somewhat in the middle, right? Like it's sometimes true, sometimes not.
Yeah, okay, so this really depends. Sometimes it is true. Eating raw is the best way to get everything in, but depending on the method of cooking, some of it could be in there, some of it could not be in there. So for example, if you boil a bunch of broccoli and you strain it and you just eat the broccoli, that water still contains a lot of vitamins and minerals, like a lot of vitamins. But for example, if you put it in soup, everything is still in there. So it's like a little bit of yes and no, but so raw vegetables do have way more in it, but you could also eat cooked vegetables. And there's a fun fact that we were actually told by Erica, who told us this. If you cook in cast iron, some of the iron is retained in the food that you eat. So if you cook vegetables in a cast iron skillet, you'll have a little bit more iron in there. So this is another thing to keep in mind, but this was a tricky question. Folate from spinach and black-eyed peas and folic acid are especially important for which of the following groups? Children under 2 years old, athletes, women of childbearing age, or all of these? So it's actually women of childbearing age. So that's the correct one. Especially when a baby is forming inside the womb, folic acid and folate are really important for brain and bone development in the fetus. So that's just something to keep in mind. What is the best way to know that the bread you are buying is whole grain bread? If the bread tastes grainy, bread is brown in color, the label says 100% wheat, or any ingredient that includes the word whole. Yes, so that word is really, really important. So there's a lot of different laws and rules regarding the way that you can label foods, but when the word whole is there, then that means the entire grain was used in the process of making the food. So one thing that I always do is whenever I have like literally anything, I always like to read the nutrition label because that tells you a lot about what's in it, and especially because I'm super interested in it. But if it has whole in the word, that's when you know it's whole grain. Something that is 100% wheat could still be wheat, but it can't, like, it's probably not the whole thing. So you can have parts of wheat in there, but it won't be the entire thing. That's why the word whole is really important.
Can I ask a question before I move on?
Sure.
So you're saying that wheat is only part of whole grain. So what other vitamins and minerals do you know in whole grain rather than just wheat?
So the distinction there is, like, for example, all-purpose flour, that is still something that comes from wheat. So for example, I could bake like white bread is still 100% wheat because it's still made from wheat. But unless it says whole wheat, the entire wheat is not used. But for example, there's more fiber in it because of the shell, and then there's also a lot of vitamins that are naturally found in the germ of wheat. And honestly, Erica could probably answer this question better, but those are some of the things that I know for sure that we lose when we use all-purpose flour.
Got it. Thanks. And also, if anyone else has questions, feel free to shout them out for discussion after each one.
Yeah, and if you want to like type them into the chat and wait till the nutritionist and dietitian Erica gets here, that's totally fine too. So just save your questions or type them in. Yes, okay, cool. Refined grains have been milled, but have also been removed of many nutrients. Which of these foods is a refined grain? So this is kind of something that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, so like there's different processes to separate out the grain, and which one of these is not whole and which one of these is refined. Yes. So a good rule of thumb is anything that's pure white is not a whole grain, because that's why the in the earlier question, brown in color was one of the tricky questions. For example, white rice, there's a husk that's on top of white rice, and that's the difference between brown rice and white rice. White rice is just the starch part, so that's why it is a refined grain, because it's been through a process to remove some of the outside stuff. What important mineral is found in all foods in the dairy group? Is it vitamin C, calcium, riboflavin, or fiber? Yes, this is kind of like the obvious one because we hear it all the time. Calcium, calcium, calcium. So calcium is always in foods in the dairy group. So how many cup equivalents from the food group, from foods in the dairy group are recommended for adults in each day? Is it 1 cup, 2 cups, 3 cups, or 4 cups? So yes, so the recommended for adults each day is 3 cups of dairy group products. So foods from the dairy group, 3 cups a day. That's the recommended. And we can go look at the leaderboard in the meantime, and then we'll just wait like 1 more minute until we start up the next question. Very nice job, Ria. You're doing really well. But Tashar has a answer streak going, so watch out. It's still anybody's game. We're on our last 2 questions. So what is the name of the sugar found naturally in milk? And here's a hint. Words that end in OSE mean that it's a sugar. Yes, so it's lactose. So you commonly hear the phrase, oh, I'm lactose intolerant, I can't have ice cream. That's basically, that just means that your body can't digest the sugar that's found in milk. So lactose is just the name of that sugar. So OSE always means that it's a form of sugar. Alrighty, second to last question. Which of these dairy products contain a healthy bacteria, also called probiotics? Is it milk? Is it ice cream? Is it cheese? Or is it yogurt? Yeah, so it's yogurt. Yogurt contains, so yogurt goes through a process to go from milk to yogurt, and in that process, a lot of great bacteria get formed inside of it. So your body needs bacteria to survive. So there's lots of good bacteria, and there's also some bad bacteria, but your body is a mix of both. So just keeping that in mind. So yogurt is a great form of it. Alrighty, last question, last question. Which of these is a calcium option for people who are lactose intolerant? Is it lactose-free milk, calcium fortified soy milk, kale and collard greens, or all of the above? Yes, it's all of the above. Lactose-free milk has gone through a process to remove the lactose from it. So while all of these options do not have lactose in them, they're still a really great way to get calcium in there. And dark leafy greens are also a really great source of calcium. So just keep that in mind too, if you don't want to have anything like that. So let's see. So DT's in 3rd place with 9 out of 16. Kavia's in 2nd place with 11 out of 16. And who is it? Ria. Ria, congratulations, you're the winner. And just for like, yeah, Ruchi and DT GN are both the runners up. So the faster you answer, the more points you get. That's why you can have the same number, but still be in different things. So just keeping that in mind. So yay, thank you so much for participating in that. That was a lot of fun.
All right, yeah. So we are waiting for a quick Q&A with a nutritional and diabetes educator, Erica Deshmukh, and she works at the South Asian Heart Center. So she'll come in a few minutes, sort of facilitate a Q&A with us and maybe even debrief the quiz that we just took. So we'll be doing that in the next couple minutes.
Mindful eating, health and wellness. I actually am a dietitian with the South Asian Heart Center, and I work with the diabetes prevention program I've helped develop. We're actually accredited by the CDC. It's a pretty interesting program, so that's why I wasn't here so soon. I was just teaching a program, and I've done a lot of education and work basically with people, mainly motivating with habit change, because a lot of diet stuff, I guess a lot of it is surprising maybe, and you need the education. Maybe especially when you're young. I think we all know, like, okay, our parents are telling us, eat more vegetables, eat fresh fruit, and we're craving other things. But eventually all this stuff, you sort of are like, okay, I know it, but it's hard to apply it because things are so tempting and I'm with my friends and I like these things, and it becomes more and more difficult, I think, for people to make habit changes that really stick. So a lot of what I do is sort of teach people what they already know, but kind of bridge the gap on how to do it. So my job is pretty fun. And I also sometimes just develop content and motivations. And I've worked with a lot of startups doing that, even working with AI and stuff, which is kind of cool as a dietitian. So I have fun creating content and mainly just motivating people to do what they want to do. So that's my background. Any questions on that? I don't see anybody, but I get to see a DT and Anna DT and Catherine. Okay. So what else? You want to hear a little about mindful eating, or you want to do an experiment, or why it's important?
Yes, all of the above. So if you could just explain what mindful eating is, and then just kind of lead into like what you
Okay.
said.
Well, mindful eating it's something that's very natural. You know, if you think about, I'm going to tell you what it's not, maybe. I'm going to just talk about how most of us eat these days a lot of times. A lot of times, you know, maybe you're in school or you're doing something and you're distracted and you're eating something, you're not paying attention. You know, just like kind of how we do things. We go in the kitchen, we get a snack, we put our hand in the chips, we're kind of walking around eating. That's what I'd call the opposite, is kind of mindless eating. So mindful eating, or I like to call it conscious eating, it's just a way of figuring out how to be present with the experience of eating, which is actually pretty simple. It overlaps, I think, the meditation a little bit. And so I imagine, because you're here with Crack the Wellness Code, that most of you have had some experience like with Sachin, et cetera, with, you know, slowing down, tuning into your breath, being in the present moment. And so eating mindfully, I've got all these fruits and vegetables behind me. It doesn't matter what we're eating. There's no judgment. It's not like the nutrition quiz you took where we talk about what to eat. It's more about talking about how we eat. And mindful eating is learning to just be completely present. So I always say you don't have to go to school, you don't have to take courses, but you can just practice it. And some of the ways we practice are really simple. Like Gandhi, many of you know who Gandhi is. I think he was the first one who said, chew your drink and drink your food. Wow, how deep is that? Like, do you even know what that means? Does that even make sense? What does it mean? What do you think?
I guess it's like exploring the different ways in which we can consume food. So instead of drinking, we can eat food. Instead of eating, we can drink food, even though it doesn't make logical sense. But I guess
it doesn't make logical. Look at Ria's. She's saying don't inhale your food. Okay, I'm gonna kind of go with a little in between here. You both. So inhaling your food is like, somebody in my class used to call it the Hoover method. If you've ever heard of the Hoover vacuum cleaner, like we just start going on automatic and just eating and eating. That's kind of where you were in this. Yours at DT was like, well, what he's saying is, if you just take your food, let's bring it really simple, and you chew it, and you keep chewing it. Have you ever chewed your food like more than 10 times? Have you ever chewed, you're laughing, Kevin, how many times have you ever chewed your food? Have you ever practiced like 30 or 50 times?
No, I think after you talked about chewing, the drinking food makes sense. I think until then I was confused, but I know what you mean. I actually did do that once where I was just like, let me see how long I can chew this. And then it was just like.
And what happens?
It's just like, I'm thinking about it, I'm getting kind of like grossed out, but like it's like literally water in your mouth.
Totally, you drink your food. And this is an amazing thing to think about. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna tell you a story. And then I'm gonna come back to this, because it's so fascinating. You'll never forget this story. This is where I first heard about this concept. And I'd never heard of mindful eating, but I heard the story. And it's very obscure, but it was about this guy whose father was in a concentration camp with the Nazis. He was from Greece originally, but they brought him over on a boat into a concentration camp in the 1940s. And he was with 30 some other people. And do you know the conditions in these camps? I mean, most of you must know that they were very terrible, and people were starving and dying, and it was just awful. And they only had a piece of bread to eat if they were lucky, or, you know, a little piece of meat, I think they gave them, and this kind of coffee, I think it was called chicory, if you know that, and very little. And so his father started chewing his food, and he chewed it and chewed it and chewed it, and he experimented with it till he was chewing it. I'm not kidding. You went away. Your picture's not there anymore, Kevin. And so did you, Aditi.
Sorry,
It helps me to see you. Thank you. 150 times per bite, he was chewing his food, kind of sounding like close to what you did. And what he realized, though, in those terribly bitter cold conditions where people were starving around him, he started to feel warmer. He started to feel more energy. He shared it with other people in his camp, and they all sort of kind of laughed at him or said, whatever, strange person. 2 people listened to him, and they started doing this practice. Every time they had food, they would just chew it and chew it and chew it. And they all said, wow, I have more energy. There were 3 survivors in the camp of like 30 some people. And it was him and those 2 other people. It's a true story. His name was Antonio Stancic. This story really impressed me when I first heard it. And later, when I heard about this practice and started seeing mindful eating, chew your drink and drink your food, this is only one aspect, by the way. I mean, it's not really about the whole story I just told you, but the experience you just described, Kevin, of chewing it, where does digestion start? Not in our stomach. We inhale our food. When we inhale our food, when we go on automatic, you know, it doesn't break down the same, but when we chew it like that, we digest better and we get more nutrient absorption. It's fascinating. And so this is only one method there, but chew your drink now makes, drink your food makes sense based on what Kevin's experience was. But what is chew your drink? It's a little bit, I don't think, it's like, well, try it. If you're drinking something, it's like if you try ice cold beverages, it doesn't work as well on your digestion. But if you try an ice cold beverage and you kind of swirl it around in your mouth and chew it and wait till it's lukewarm and the same temperature, you'll notice that it kind of works better in the system. And anyway, I don't want to say that that's mindful eating, but I don't know, it fascinates me that it's kind of my first introduction to this. Why did Gandhi say, drink your food and chew your drink? One thing, when we slow down, yes, we digest better, we become more present, but what might other benefits be? And Aisha is saying, is it true that you get more nutrients from chewing your food? Absolutely, we will get more nutrients if we're chewing our food. I mean, if, you know, we'll break it down better. We have more potential, let's say. You know, individually, we might absorb at different levels, and some things are absolutely broken down in the stomach and small intestine. So really, this is just where digestion begins, but I think we have more potential, Aisha, to digest better. So one thing, we could look at it from that aspect of saying, well, will I digest the food better? Will I get more nutrients? That's important. But why else might it be important to be in the present moment while we eat? There's so many reasons. They've actually done research studies with people with higher blood sugars, like diabetes. They've done a lot of research with people who have eating disorders. And this practice, you know, of slowing down and paying attention is really connected to just being more aware and not being so distracted and mindless about our choices. So it's about just becoming more conscious, which I think all of us want to do in some way. So I guess that's a little bit of an introduction. Now, let me give you a few more ideas, because you're not all going to want to chew your food. It's pretty antisocial, like 100 times until it's liquid, but you might want to try it once, try a bite, and try a meal. I challenge you to try a meal, but other ways, I'll give you a few examples. Some other ways of being more mindful and present while you eat are just turning out the distractions. And you could just choose one of these that you like and practice. You know, instead of having your phone next to you and texting while you're eating, or watching something while you're eating. You actually just eat as an activity by itself. So you just tune out the distractions is one way. Another way to eat more mindfully is to slow it down. That's like chewing more. Another way is making it aesthetically beautiful. Like, you know, it's different if you have all of your papers and homework and college applications or whatever you're doing spread out all over the table. It's kind of stressful. You know, we kind of eat our thoughts and we eat that kind of thing versus if you have a garden, if you have access to a garden or there's a flower on the table, or you make, how many of you cook and actually, or make your plates really nice to look at, like an art piece? We feel different, like when we go to a restaurant and they design it. So that is a different experience. We become more mindful, you know, when we do that. So part of the experience is just enjoyment and savoring. Again, how we eat is as important as what we eat. And there's one beautiful saying I once heard. Nobody drinks beer, and I'm glad for that, I hope, or maybe you do and you're not saying it here, but it's better, it's better to eat beans and sprouts. No, it's better to eat, this isn't a good saying for you, so don't take it how I'm saying it. It's better to eat pizza and beer in goodness and cheer than beans and sprouts in fear and doubts. That's a rhyme. And what it's saying, let me apply it to something better, is it's better that we put this good intention into foods that we may say, oh, I wasn't supposed to eat that. That's a bad food. Sweets, sugar. What are our other favorite foods? Pizza. What other foods do we love, but we think, oh, chips, you know? Why don't we slow down and really enjoy those slowly? And sometimes when we do, by the way, we actually don't enjoy them so much, which is really important to figure out too. I'm eating a bag of chips, I'm chewing it 15 times, and I realize, actually, that doesn't taste as good as an apple. That's an interesting discovery. But it's better to do that than you know, be so hyper-focused on, you know, what's in the food. So it's a balance between the nutrition that you were talking about earlier and being completely present and mindful of how we eat the food. So Ria put a great comment, is chocolate. Chocolate is a great thing to do an experiment. And if I had longer, I would do this experiment, but I'm gonna tell you to go take this home. Go get a piece of chocolate later. And before you eat it, if it's in a wrapper, if it's in a wrapper or not, you know, take it, put it in your hand, and close your eyes, just like you have done. Maybe, did Sachin do one of those experiences earlier where you close your eyes and do like the breathing or meditation? And actually do that just for 5, 10, 15 seconds. Having this piece of food in your hand, chocolate, you're excited to eat it, but first sit down, take a few deep breaths, think about what it will be like to eat the chocolate, think about if you're hungry for it, if you're excited for it, and then I want you to, you'll remember this, take the chocolate to your nose and actually smell it before you eat it. So if you'll have to unwrap it first if it's in a wrapper. Smell it, notice if your mouth is salivating it, whatever it is, and then you put it on your tongue, close your eyes, experience the chocolate, eat it slowly, like Kevin did with whatever. What were you eating that food like? Do you remember?
I was on mute. Actually, it was during, I was eating a sandwich while I was here at university like 3 weeks ago, and I was really thinking about it. And yeah, it was like a vegetable sandwich.
So it was what kind of sandwich?
It was a vegetable sandwich.
Oh, it was a vegetable sandwich. So you're going to do this with chocolate, and then you can report back to the group. You're going to take the chocolate and just savor it and chew it and enjoy it and notice if the flavor changes, the taste. Notice if you like it or you don't like it. And then take a few minutes after that. Take a few minutes and just see how was that experience. That's a mindful eating experience. And what you might notice is it's really enjoyable and you love it. Or you might notice, wow, like I didn't love it as much. There's no right or wrong to it, but that's the process of it. If we love it, savor it. If we don't love it, don't eat it. That's sort of the mindful eating, you know, sort of a thing to say about it. So you're kind of figuring out, you know, what feels right, what really nourishes me. And it's a process of figuring that out again. We eat chocolate and sometimes we go crazy on chocolate. We can go from chocolate ice cream to a chocolate bar to chocolate chips and take a few handfuls, and it still doesn't satisfy. When you slow down, you taste it, you savor it, what we may notice is, wow, I'm actually really satisfied. So that's sort of the why, and you may discover something for yourself. There's no right or wrong.